much. I would now request Professor Chidananda Bhattacharya, who is the senior most professor of our universities from the Department of English, to formally welcome the dignitaries, the guests, and the participants of this webinar. Thank you. Over to you, Professor Bhattacharya.
Thank you, Devabroto. Namaskar, and a very good morning to all and each of the audience. I definitely extend my warm welcome and my regards to the very distinguished, learned guests who have kindly agreed to come in. May I request all participants who may have been on somehow inadvertently, haven't switched yourselves off, please go to the mute mode, otherwise it comes to intervene with the noise production. Everyone be so kind as to just mute yourselves for a few whiles, and please suffer me to produce some impromptu half-baked kind of thoughts for you. I definitely fet and welcome Professor Kamar, Professor and Mr. Jadab, or Yadav rather, and Keshav Bhai, Professor Keshav Bhattacharya, and Professor Dasa Dishanayake. I don't know whether Sri Dishanayake has already joined in, but it's such a wonderful kind of gathering, and all the participants, my colleagues, my loved kind of younger progeny of the upcoming scholars and new teachers. I shan't be very long. We are eager to listen up and to to fill in our pouch with hard-earned well-grilled and veteran ideas and ideations, because Veda Vivinna, Shrutayor Vivinna, Nasau Munir Yasya Matanna Bhinnam, Dharmasya Tatpang Nihitang Guhaya, Mohajano Yenagata Satpantha. There are no laws or sciences or epistemologies, the Vedas, nor, here says Shrutayo, traditional knowledges orally transmitted from generation to generation. Veda, there are different ledges of knowledge, different approaches. That is our ancient, pluricultural, almost plurivocal Indian ethos of cohesion and cooperation, because the Vedas are Vivinna, there are so many ledges. I'm just touching on lightly on those notes. The Nyaya, the Vaisheshika, from the bastion of philosophy itself, right from day one, there have been dissents. There are two modes. The negative mode is saying, I disagree to agree. And the civilized way of saying is, yes, I agree to disagree. So we have earned that civilized position of not being violent, not turning violent, but to carry on the dialectic. And the Indian philosophies, there is Astikya philosophy, believing in God in so many modes. Even there, within that, there are shades. Vaisheshika is different from Vedanta. Vedanta is different from Sankhya. And Nyaya, it almost charges out of the boundary of this Astikya. And there is Charvaka, for example, Yatasya hi dhruvan mrityu. So naturally, Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kuta. When the body burns up, how can the soul come back? So, javat jivet, sukhang jivet, rinam kritva kritam pivet. The Western philosophy, from Plato down to today, the hair-splitting arguments. Arguments are the way. Arguments dialecticize. Two intelligent people don't fight, they argue. Argument can be a constructive implement for progression. To repeat the, somewhat naively, the philosophy of Auguste Comte, politique positive, where Auguste Comte has, shown three stages of development, our mental, intellectual development, right from the day of the naive savages through the Hobbesian and Lockean and Rousseauian kind of path to today. The savage instinct is definitely the barbaric instinct, when men are definitely Darwinian that way, survival of the fittest. But then man has that, that prerogative, that excellent, unique prerogative of topping this knowledge of fighting. Let us not fight, let us discuss. That's the military instinct. Military is not bad. God says military is the kind of build-up of the civilization from through the various stages of development, from the Neanderthal and from the Denisovans and Neanderthal to the early modern man, to the warring man, the questioning man. Which question is there in our ancient Indian scriptures as well? Nachiketa, na chiketa, one who doesn't stop questioning, or Gargi, for example, the early proto kind of woman questioning things. So in its ramifications in our social, socio-cultural, our philosophical, in every lore of knowledge, dissent is the way to take things forward. Unless we dissented through Copernicus, Giordano Bruno, Galileo Galilei, or Newton, even through Einstein, unless we challenged the theological, the theocentric conception of the universe, how would Renaissance, how would Enlightenment, how would through Erasmus to Bruno through today, how would we have come? How would we have reached Constance Planck, Booth's void, or interstellar fourth dimension? So naturally, in every exercise of man, art, music, song, literature, even our social dialoguing, not the Adam and Eve speaking to each other, as the Psalms say, husbands love your wives, for by loving them you are loving me. Isabella and Saint Luke, for example, Saint Luke verse 10, wives love your husbands. And Eve was created out of the third left rib of Adam. And now it wasn't like that. Darwin, and even before him, Huxley was, scenting it out, and Lamarck was, through creative evolution, he was scenting them. And Karl Marx says, no, there are, exploitation, there are classifications, so that husband and wife, they start looking at the entire system through the contract social to other things. The questionings are developing. Feminism takes off, and women's studies take off. Marxist studies take off. Through Karl Marx, through Georgi Lukács, through Husserl, to today and beyond. The isms, when they turn and take bends, like Rabindranath in his modern poetry says, modernity is a new trend ushered in through conceptual innovations. So every conceptual innovation is a daring. Every act of daring is a difference. I am not a man from political science. But even in politics, legislature, democracy is the I should say, the culmination of a long march, long indeterminate march through, the twiddle-de-rum and hobble-de-hoy and gobbledygooks, as Shakespeare says, through indirections. We have found through oligarchy, through plutocracy, through feudalism, through monarchy, through despotism, to democracy. But there are atavistic tendencies. There are counter kind of spark. There are tendencies to take us backwards. If you read King Lear, you will find the tendency to bestialize is also there. Very much coexistent, coextensive with this tendency on the part of the constructive people who try to take the age forward. So naturally, the democracy has got the most concentrated sweets ready for us. But this democracy is depending on the vital principle of debate, dialogue. For example, Chief Justice and that Justice Chandrachud has already, I was looking up, he says democracy and the expression of speech and the freedom of belief must not be kind of opposed, because whereby we lapse into despotism, totalitarianism, authoritarianism. So all these will be discovered, all these will be talked upon today. I won't be long, through different parlors. We have many learned people from across faculties. Ours is a very unique faculty university. We have got humanities or arts, we have got performing art, that is music and drama and all those things, percussion, and we have visual arts, meaning sculpture, painting, graphics. So I hope, and there are guests participating from other universities and other places as well. So here we should learn and unlearn some of our darknesses through, there are so many new entities coming in in the form of political systems. The Article 19 ABC, 1 ABC speaks of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, etc., and forming of unions and institutions. And these institutions are manipulated upon by the power center. Institutions are commercialized, manipulated, and brainwashed and hegemonized over Foucault, for example. I'm citing all those things. So knowledge is sometimes, through counterintelligence, knowledge is commodified for infecting the common people, the demos. So let us listen up how we can charge at the center called Dissent, difference, because unless, as Rabindranath Tagore says, Akla Choluri, for your belief, the strength of your belief should give you the firepower to steer clear of all oppositions. So Shubha Karma Pathe Dharo Nirphayogan. Up on the path of pure work and pure heart, speak and sing like Walt Whitman, who says, go forward, allons, allons, go and discover the truth through argument, through combinative strategies. As in Derek Walcott, so in Whitman, so in Ernest Hemingway, the nada of despair must be fought, or in the Picasso painting of Guernica, for example. There are so many forms of interactions coming in the form of debate. Thank you very much. I wish a grand success for our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bhattacharya. It is always a pleasure to listen to you. It was.
Oh, I thank the organizers for pulling off such a fantastic and daring feat on our university's part. I am so proud of my young brothers and sisters.
Exactly. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. But you're also, one of the pilots of this webinar. Professor Bhattacharya is the patron in chief of this ongoing webinar. So I thank you, Professor Bhattacharya, once again